The Nuclear Regulatory Commission is an independent agency of the United States government, established by the Energy Reorganization Act of 1974, and began operations on January 19, 1975, as one of two successor agencies to the United States Atomic Energy Commission. The NRC's role is to protect public health and safety related to nuclear energy. It oversees reactor safety and security, reactor licensing and renewal, licensing of radioactive materials, radionuclide safety, and spent fuel management including storage, security, recycling, and disposal. History. Prior to 1975, the Atomic Energy Commission was in charge of matters regarding radionuclides. The AEC was dissolved because it was perceived as unduly favoring the industry it was charged with regulating. The NRC was formed as an independent commission to oversee nuclear energy matters, oversight of nuclear medicine, and nuclear safety. The U.S. AEC became the Energy Research and Development Administration in 1975, responsible for development and oversight of nuclear weapons, research and promotion of civil uses of radioactive materials, such as for nuclear non-destructive testing, nuclear medicine, and nuclear power, was split into the Office of Nuclear Energy, Science and Technology within ERDA by the same act. In 1977, ERDA became the United States Department of Energy. In 2000, the National Nuclear Security Administration was created as a subcomponent of DOE, responsible for nuclear weapons. 12 years into NRC operations, a 1987 congressional report entitled NRC Coziness with Industry concluded that the NRC has not maintained an arm's-length regulatory posture with the commercial nuclear power industry, and has, in some critical areas, abdicated its role as a regulator altogether. To cite three examples, a 1986 congressional report found that NRC staff had provided valuable technical assistance to the utility seeking an operating license for the controversial Seabrook plant. In the late 1980s, the NRC created a policy of non-enforcement by asserting its discretion not to enforcement with license conditions. Between September 1989 and 1994, the NRC has either waived or chosen not to enforce regulations at nuclear power reactors over 340 times. Finally, critics charge that the NRC has ceded important aspects of regulatory authority to the industry's own Institute for Nuclear Power Operations, an organization formed by utilities in response to the 3 Mile Island accident. The origins and development of NRC regulatory processes and policies are explained in 5 volumes of history published by the University of California Press. These are: Controlling the Atom, The Beginnings of Nuclear Regulation 1946 to 1962, Containing the Atom, Nuclear Regulation in a Changing Environment, 1963 to 1971, Permissible Dose, A History of Radiation Protection in the 20th Century, 3 Mile Island, A Nuclear Crisis in Historical Perspective, The Road to Yucca Mountain, The Development of Radioactive Waste Policy in the United States. The NRC has produced a readable booklet, A Short History of Nuclear Regulation 1946 to 2009, which outlines key issues in NRC history. Thomas Wellock, a former academic, is the NRC historian. Before joining the NRC, Wellock wrote Critical Masses: Opposition to Nuclear Power in California, 1958 to 1978. Mission and Commissioners. The NRC's mission is to regulate the nation's civilian use of byproduct, source, and special nuclear materials to ensure adequate protection of public health and safety, to promote the common defense and security, and to protect the environment. The NRC's regulatory mission covers three main areas: reactors, commercial reactors for generating electric power and research and test reactors used for research, testing, and training; materials, uses of nuclear materials in medical, industrial, and academic settings and facilities that produce nuclear fuel; waste, transportation, storage, and disposal of nuclear materials and waste; and decommissioning of nuclear facilities from service. The NRC is headed by 5 commissioners appointed by the President of the United States and confirmed by the United States Senate for 5-year terms. One of them is designated by the President to be the chairman and official spokesperson of the Commission. Alison M. McFarlane is the chairman of the NRC since July 2012, replacing Gregory Junchko. She was reconfirmed for a 5-year term by the United States Senate in July 2013. A geologist by training, McFarlane was an associate professor of environmental science and policy at George Mason University prior to chairing NRC. McFarlane was a member of the White House Blue Ribbon Commission on America's Nuclear Future, which was charged by the Secretary of Energy to examine the issues associated with nuclear waste disposal in the United States. McFarlane is a longtime critic of storing spent nuclear fuel in a mountain near Las Vegas called Yucca Mountain. She has stated that the seismic and volcanic activity as well as oxidizing in the environment would make the nuclear waste unstable. McFarlane supports storing nuclear waste at reactor sites in dry casks and the allocation of billions to find a suitable geologic repository for storage over the next few decades. Organization. The NRC consists of the Commission on the one hand and offices of the Executive Director for Operations on the other. The Commission is divided into 2 committees and 1 board, the Atomic Safety and Licensing Board panel, as well as 8 Commission staff offices. There are altogether 17 Executive Director for Operations offices. Office of Federal and State Materials and Environmental Management Programs, Office of New Reactors, Office of Nuclear Material Safety and Safeguards, Office of Nuclear Reactor Regulation, Office of Nuclear Regulatory Research, Office of Enforcement, which investigates reports by nuclear power whistleblowers, specifically the Allegations Program, Office of Investigations, Office of Nuclear Security and Incident Response, Region 1, Region 2, Region 3, Region 4, Office of Information Services, Computer Security Office, Office of Administration, Office of the Chief Human Capital Officer, and Office of Small Business and Civil Rights. Of these operations offices, NRC's major program components are the first 5 offices mentioned above. NRC's proposed FY 2015 budget is $1,059.5 million, with 3,895.9 full-time equivalents, 90% of which is recovered by fees. This is an increase of $3.6 million, including 65.1 FTE, compared to FY 2014. NRC headquarters offices are located in unincorporated North Bethesda, Maryland, and there are 4 regional offices. Regions. The NRC territory is broken down into 4 geographical regions. Until the late 1990s, there was a Region 5 office in Walnut Creek, California, which was absorbed into Region 4, and Region 5 was dissolved. Region 1, located in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, oversees the northeastern states. Region 2, located in Atlanta, Georgia, oversees most of the southeastern states. Region 3, located in Lisle, Illinois, oversees the Midwest. Region 4, located in Arlington, Texas, oversees the western and south-central states. In these 4 regions, NRC oversees the operation of U.S. nuclear reactors, namely 104 power-producing reactors, and 36 non-power-producing reactors. Oversight is done on several levels. For example, each power-producing reactor site has resident inspectors, who monitor day-to-day operations. Numerous special inspection teams, with many different specialties, routinely conduct inspections at each site. Record-keeping system. NRC has a library, which also contains online document collections. In 1999 it started an electronic repository called ADAMS, the agency-wide documents access and management system, for its public inspection reports, correspondence, and other technical documents written by NRC staff, contractors, and licensees. It has been upgraded in October 2010 and is now web-based. Of documents from 1980 to 1999, only some have abstracts or full text, most are citations. Documents from before 1980 are available in paper or microfiche formats. Copies of these older documents or classified documents can be applied for with a FOIA request. Training and accreditation. NRC conducts audits and training inspections, observes the National Nuclear Accrediting Board meetings, and nominates some members. The 1980 Kemeny Commission's report after the 3 Mile Island accident recommended that the nuclear energy industry set and police its own standards of excellence. The nuclear industry founded the Institute of Nuclear Power Operations within 9 months to establish personnel training and qualification. The industry, through INPO, created the National Academy for Nuclear Training Program, either as early as 1980 or in September 1985 per the International Atomic Energy Agency. INPO refers to NANT as our National Academy for Nuclear Training on its website. NANT integrates and standardizes the training programs of INPO and U.S. nuclear energy companies, offers training scholarships and interacts with the National Nuclear Accrediting Board. This board is closely related to the National Academy for Nuclear Training, not a government body, and referred to as independent by INPO, the Nuclear Energy Institute, and nuclear utilities, but not by the NRC, all of whom are represented on the board. The 1982 Nuclear Waste Policy Act directed NRC in Section 306 to issue regulations or other appropriate regulatory guidance on training of nuclear plant personnel. Since the nuclear industry already had developed training and accreditation, NRC issued a policy statement in 1985, endorsing the INPO program. NRC has a Memorandum of Agreement with INPO and monitors INPO activities by observing accreditation team visits and the monthly NNAB meetings. In 1993, NRC endorsed the industry's approach to training that had been used for nearly a decade, through its training rule. In February 1994, NRC passed the Operator Requalification Rule 59 FR 5938, February 9, 1994, allowing each nuclear power plant company rather than the agency to conduct the operator licensing renewal examination every 6 years, eliminating the requirement of NRC-administered written requalification examination. In 1999, NRC issued a final rule on operator initial licensing examination that allows, but does not require, companies to prepare, proctor, and grade their own operator initial licensing examinations. Facilities can, upon written request, continue to have the examinations prepared and administered by NRC staff. But if a company volunteers to prepare the examination, NRC continues to approve and administer it. Since 2000, meetings between NRC and applicants or licensees have been open to the public. Terrorism threats. Terrorist attacks such as those executed by Al-Qaeda in New York on September 11, 2001 and in London on July 7, 2005 have prompted fears that extremist groups might use radioactive dirty bombs in further attacks in the United States and elsewhere. In March 2007, undercover investigators from the Government Accountability Office set up a false company and obtained a license from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission that would have allowed them to buy the radioactive materials needed for a dirty bomb. According to the GAO report, NRC officials did not visit the company or attempt to personally interview its executives. Instead, within 28 days, the NRC mailed a license to the West Virginia postal box. Upon receipt of the license, GAO officials were able to easily modify its stipulations and remove a limit on the amount of radioactive material they could buy. A spokesman for the NRC said that the agency considered the radioactive devices of lower-level threat. A bomb built with the materials could have contaminated an area about the length of a city block, but would not have presented an immediate health hazard. Prospective nuclear units. Between 2007 and 2009, 13 companies applied to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission for construction and operating licenses to build 25 new nuclear power reactors in the United States. However, the case for widespread nuclear plant construction was eroded due to abundant natural gas supplies, slow electricity demand growth in a weak U.S. economy, lack of financing, and uncertainty following the Fukushima nuclear disaster. Many license applications for proposed new reactors were suspended or cancelled. Only a few new reactors will enter service by 2020. These will not be the cheapest energy options available, but they are an attractive investment for utilities because the government mandates that taxpayers pay for construction in advance. In 2013, 4 aging reactors were permanently closed. San Onofre 2 and 3 in California, Crystal River 3 in Florida, and Corny in Wisconsin. Vermont Yankee, in Vernon, was shut down on December 29, 2014, following many protests. New York State is seeking to close Indian Point Energy Center, in Buchanan, 30 miles from New York City. Regulatory capture. Vernon Hoffman wrote in 1996 that since the 1980s the NRC has generally favored the interests of nuclear industry, and been unduly responsive to industry concerns, while failing to pursue tough regulation. The NRC has often sought to hamper or deny public access to the regulatory process, and created new barriers to public participation. Barack Obama, when running for president in 2007, said that the 5-member NRC had become captive of the industries that it regulates. Numerous different observers have criticized the NRC as an example of regulatory capture. The NRC has been accused of having conflicting roles as regulator and salesman, in a 2011 Reuters article, doing an inadequate job by the Union of Concerned Scientists, and has the agency approval process has been called the rubber stamp. Frank N. von Hippel wrote in March 2011 that despite the 1979 Three Mile Island accident in Pennsylvania, the NRC has often been too timid in ensuring that America's 104 commercial reactors are operated safely. Nuclear power regulation is a textbook example of the problem of regulatory capture, in which an industry gains control of an agency meant to regulate it. Regulatory capture can be countered only by vigorous public scrutiny and congressional oversight, but in the 32 years since 3 Mile Island, interest in nuclear regulation has declined precipitously. An article in the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists stated that many forms of NRC regulatory failure exist, including regulations ignored by the common consent of NRC and industry. A worker at the Millstone nuclear power plant in Connecticut kept warning management that the spent fuel rods were being put too quickly into the spent storage pool and that the number of rods in the pool exceeded specifications. Management ignored him, so he went directly to the NRC, which eventually admitted that it knew of both of the forbidden practices. which happened at many plants, but chose to ignore them. The whistleblower was fired and blacklisted. In Vermont, the day before the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami that damaged Japan's Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, the NRC approved a 20-year extension for the license of Vermont Yankee nuclear power plant. Although the Vermont state legislature voted overwhelmingly to deny an extension, the plant had been found to be leaking radioactive materials through a network of underground pipes, which Energy had denied under oath even existed. At a hearing in 2009, Tony Klein, chairman of the Vermont House Natural Resources and Energy Committee, had asked the NRC about the pipes, and the NRC also did not know they existed. In March 2011, the Union of Concerned Scientists released a study critical of the NRC's 2010 performance as a regulator. The UCS said that over the years, it had found the NRC's enforcement of safety rules has not been timely, consistent, or effective, and it cited 14 near misses at U.S. plants in 2010 alone. In April 2011, Reuters reported that diplomatic cables showed NRC sometimes being used as a sales tool to help push American technology to foreign governments when lobbying for the purchase of equipment made by Westinghouse Electric Company and other domestic manufacturers. This gives the appearance of a regulator which is acting in a commercial capacity, raising concerns about a potential conflict of interest.